Imagine waking up, right, and finding out your morning coffee, the car you drive to work, and the gas you put in it are all suddenly caught in the crossfire of two simultaneous global economic wars.
Yeah, there's a lot to process before breakfast.
Right. One is against our oldest neighbor and ally. The other is against a bitter adversary halfway across the world. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a mountain of information.
Oh, yeah, an absolute mountain.
Yeah, like news clippings, press releases, social media posts, all from Monday, August 24th, 2026. Which, I mean, this might go down as one of the most chaotic days in recent economic history.
Without a doubt.
So our mission today is to map out this unprecedented dual-front economic warfare the U.S. is launching and really trace exactly how those global shockwaves are hitting your wallet back home. But before we jump in, just a quick note. Our sources today contain some highly charged political statements from both the left and the right.
Yeah, very charged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our goal here is not to take sides or endorse any of these viewpoints. We are strictly here to impartially report on the contents of the sources you provided and help you understand the arguments being made on all sides. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, it is a massive day to unpack. We are looking at an administration that is attempting to fundamentally rewire global trade and finance. And they're doing this by weaponizing two very different things at the exact same time.
Right.
The U.S. consumer market on one hand and the U.S. dollar on the other. It's a flex of economic muscle that is incredibly aggressive and, technically complex once you really look under the hood.
And it all really kicks off with this absolute bombshell announcement regarding the northern border. I mean, President Trump threatened to impose a staggering 50% tariff on Canadian automobiles, car parts, and steel.
Yeah.
And the start date is set for January 1st, 2027. We were talking about our second largest trading partner here. How do we get to the point of a 50% tariff? Because that just seems astronomically high.
It is high. And the administration's rationale comes down to what they see as a fundamental breakdown in trade negotiations. From their perspective, the U.S. is heavily subsidizing a one-sided relationship.
Okay.
The president actually claimed in a post that Canada has been, quote, ripping off the United States for years.
Wow.
Yeah. He points specifically to a $60 billion trade deficit and heavily protected Canadian markets. So, for example, Canada has historically placed these massive tariffs on U.S. dairy and farm products to protect their own farmers.
Right.
And the administration's argument is that, well, these policies have made it impossible for American agricultural workers to compete fairly.
I mean, he definitely did not mince words. In his post, he declared, Canada will be treated like a state no longer. Which, I mean, that caused a massive stir, especially when paired with J.D. Vance's recent viral moment.
Oh, the Freudian slip.
Yes. Governor Josh Shapiro pointed out a clip where Vance actually called Canada a state and then immediately followed it up by saying, sorry, Freudian slip.
Yeah, that was everywhere.
Critics are totally jumping on this. They're saying it reveals a mindset where the administration views Canada less as a sovereign ally,
Yeah.
and more as like a subordinate territory.
Right. And that perceived attitude is driving a fierce bipartisan backlash, particularly from lawmakers in border states. We're talking representatives and senators from New York, Ohio, Michigan, Maine, Wisconsin.
They're all sounding the alarm.
Exactly. They aren't viewing this as just some tough negotiating tactic. They're calling it outright economic warfare against a deeply integrated partner.
It feels a bit like locking your front door to punish a bad neighbor, but then realizing, oh, wait, I also locked out the guy delivering my own groceries.
That is a perfect analogy for cross-border trade. I mean, Representative Debbie Dingell in Michigan pointed out that the U.S. and Canada share bridges, lakes, and entirely intertwined local economies.
Right.
But to understand why a 50% tariff is so disruptive, you have to look at the mechanics of manufacturing. Take the auto industry, for example. A car doesn't just get built in Ontario and shipped to Detroit. The individual parts, the chassis, the engine components, the electronics, they might cross the U.S.-Canada border 5 or 6 times during the assembly process.
Oh, wow. Wait, I didn't realize it's that cyclical. So if there's a 50% tariff, does that tax hit every single time the part crosses the border?
Exactly. The cost compounds.
Jeez.
So if you're planning to buy a Ford or a Chevy next year, this isn't just geopolitical noise. The argument from these border state lawmakers is that this tariff will exponentially inflate the price of that car overnight.
And it's not just cars, right?
No. The documents outline a massive list of targeted items. Building materials, paper products, clothing, dairy, alcohol, even hockey equipment. It's $20 billion worth of products facing immediate price spikes.
But wait, a really common defense of tariffs is that they punish the foreign corporation, right? Like, won't these Canadian companies just eat the cost to stay competitive in our market?
Yeah.
Representative Pramila Jayapal brought up a point from history that suggests otherwise.
She did. And it gets to the core mechanism of how tariffs actually work in the real world. A tariff is not a tax paid by the foreign country.
Right.
It is a tax collected by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection from the U.S. importer.
Oh.
And the importer almost always passes that cost directly onto the consumer. Jayapal reminded everyone that when previous sweeping tariffs were ruled illegal and struck down, it resulted in billions of dollars in refunds.
Which sounds good, but
Right, but those refunds went back to the corporations that paid the import fees. They didn't go back to the American consumers who already absorbed the higher prices at the checkout counter. The money doesn't trickle back down.
so the consumer is just permanently out that cash.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that the primary weapon against Canada relies entirely on the allure of the American consumer market. We're basically saying, if you want to sell to our buyers, you pay the toll. But to fight an adversary like Iran, the administration has to pull a completely different lever. Let's look at the Eastern Front, because they are using the dominance of the U.S. dollar to do something entirely different here.
Yeah, this is a major pivot in strategy. If the goal with Canada is to punish through trade friction, the strategy with Iran is complete financial obliteration.
Wow.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent held this really dramatic press conference announcing what he called Operation Economic Outcast, which culminates in an economic D-Day.
Economic D-Day. I mean, that is some heavy branding. What is the actual policy behind the name?
Well, to understand the financial strategy, you have to look at the military context Bessent provided. He stated that the military phase of the conflict with Iran is entering the, quote, end game.
Okay.
According to the administration, they have dismantled Iran's military capabilities, they've destroyed nearly 100% of its military factories, and buried its nuclear program.
Right. So they're claiming a big victory there.
Exactly. And because of that declared military success, the Treasury feels it can now launch a final, crushing financial offensive. They are moving from just managing the threat to trying to end it completely.
And they're doing this by targeting 5 vital lifelines that Iran relies on in third-party countries. The list includes digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping.
Right.
But I'm genuinely curious about the mechanics here. How does a country like Iran use something like gold or digital assets to evade U.S. sanctions in the first place?
It comes down to untraceability.
Okay.
When a normal international transaction happens, it leaves a digital footprint that U.S. intelligence can easily track. But if an Iranian operative in a third country takes local currency, buys physical gold, and physically moves that gold across a border to pay for, say, drone parts.
Then the U.S. financial system is just completely blind to it.
Exactly. Same with digital assets like cryptocurrency. They are using decentralized networks to bypass traditional banks entirely.
Okay, so the Treasury knows this is happening. How do they actually stop it? The term they use is secondary sanctions. But how do you enforce a secondary sanction against a bank in a totally different country?
This is where the sheer power of the U.S. dollar comes in. The Treasury isn't just saying U.S. companies can't do business with Iran. I mean, that's been illegal for a long time.
Right.
A secondary sanction is an ultimatum to the rest of the world. The Treasury essentially says to a foreign bank, if you process a transaction for anyone linked to Iran, we will sever your access to the U.S. correspondent banking system.
Okay, wait, correspondent banking system. Break that down for me.
Sure. So most international trade is conducted in U.S. dollars. If a bank in Dubai wants to send money to a bank in Tokyo, they usually have to route those dollars through a correspondent account held at a major U.S. bank in New York.
Oh, I see.
It is basically the plumbing of global finance. If the Treasury cuts off your correspondent account, you can no longer process dollar transactions. You are essentially exiled from the global economy.
Right.
Yeah. So Secretary Bessent's message is binary. Tether yourself to Tehran and face total isolation, or side with the United States.
Wait, I'm confused, though. If the dollar is so powerful and this weapon is so definitive, why hasn't the administration actually dropped the hammer and imposed these secondary penalties yet? Because financial commentator Peter Schiff pointed out this huge caveat in the press conference. He noted that they are holding back because they don't want to, quote, blow up the global financial system. Are we just bluffing?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this is a massive vulnerability, and it's the exact paradox Schiff is highlighting. Think of the US dollar system like running the only major toll road in town.
Okay.
You have incredible power. You can ban bad actors from using your road, but if you start banning too many people or if the tolls get too punitive, those banned drivers are going to get together, pool their money, and pave a brand new highway right next door.
And once that new highway is built, they never need to use our road again. We just lose all our leverage.
Precisely. The U.S. is the primary beneficiary of the dollar being the world's reserve currency. If we actually kick major international banks or entire countries out of the dollar system, we create a massive existential incentive for them to build an alternative system.
Like using Chinese currency or a BRICS alternative.
Exactly. It is the financial equivalent of mutually assured destruction.
So we need them to use the dollar just as much as they need to use it. And this hesitation to actually pull the trigger is fueling some severe criticism.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Senator Chris Murphy called the whole economic D-Day announcement desperate window dressing.
Right.
He claims Iran is actually winning the war, and the American people are paying a huge cost for a strategy he considers basically a fool's errand.
And that brings us to the operational reality. This dual-front economic warfare isn't just abstract finance moving around on a spreadsheet.
Right.
It requires massive physical, military, and institutional realignments to maintain, and the strain is becoming highly visible.
Yeah, the human toll seems immense. Senator Tammy Duckworth is demanding immediate public hearings about the strain this is putting on service members.
Yeah.
She cited these incredibly long, extended troop deployments in what she calls a never-ending Iran war. And she highlighted a deeply disturbing report where Navy sailors reportedly tried to go overboard on the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, that was hard to read.
It's just a horrifying indicator of the morale and the absolute pressure cooker these deployments have become.
It is. It's a tragic symptom of a military stretched to its absolute limits. And because the military is so hyper-focused on the Middle East, we're seeing major geopolitical chess moves elsewhere as a result.
Like what?
Well, for instance, there are reports that the U.S. Air Force is actively removing KC-135 refueling tankers from Bulgaria amid these Iran warnings. They are pulling assets out of Europe to rush them to the Middle East.
And Senator Tim Kaine claims this shifting of assets is happening in Asia, too. He cited a Reuters report suggesting the administration is scaling back support for a long-standing ally, South Korea, in order to flatter North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Kaine's argument is that Trump is pulling U.S. forces from Asia to basically salvage the Iran war. This doesn't look like America first to critics. It looks like we are actively destabilizing our Pacific alliances and handing a massive geopolitical gift to China just to keep the Middle East operations afloat.
And that extreme external strain is causing serious internal institutional friction within the Department of Defense. Representative Jason Crow highlighted a major controversy involving Pentagon official Pete Hegseth.
Oh, right.
According to a Washington Post report, Hegseth reportedly fired the editors and journalists of Stars and Stripes.
I had to read that twice when I saw it.
Right.
Stars and Stripes is an independent military newspaper. It has been around for over a century. Why would a Pentagon official fire their journalists?
Well, the accusation from Representative Crow is that the journalists were criticizing Department of Defense interference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Firing them is seen by critics as a blatant attempt to silence independent reporting and cover up internal failures or corruption within the ranks during this, highly stressful period of warfare.
So you have a military stretched to the breaking point abroad, assets being shuffled away from key allies, and severe institutional crackdowns happening internally. But let's bring this back to the listener. How does all this geopolitics crash into the American consumer's wallet?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the domestic ripple effects are immediate and severe. When you disrupt global supply chains with 50% tariffs and redirect billions into a military conflict, it supercharges inflation.
Representative Adam Smith actually put a hard number on it. He claims families are paying an extra $3,500 just for basic cost of living due to what he calls the administration's inflation. And Representative Sarah Jacobs pointed out data showing that prices are currently going up much faster than wages. That means working Americans are steadily falling behind month over month.
And this economic pain is amplifying some really explosive accusations of war profiteering from lawmakers?
Yes. The House Democrats released a Joint Economic Committee analysis with a staggering claim. They allege that Trump's own oil and gas stocks have beamed up to $15.5 million amid the Iran war.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Add to that, Governor Tim Walz pointed to an ethics filing showing Trump made over 1,000 stock trades in the month of June alone.
1,000 trades.
In 1 month. Walz openly questioned if the president was trading on insider information. I mean, when the commander-in-chief is making 1,000 trades while actively managing a war that directly impacts those exact markets, how is the administration defending that?
Well, the administration's countermove isn't really to debate the stock trades directly. It is to take highly visible executive action to address the most painful economic pressure point for voters, which is gas prices.
Yep.
To counter the narrative of inflation and profiteering, the Trump EPA enacted an emergency waiver to end the summer blend gasoline requirement early across the entire nation.
Okay, I see signs for summer blend and winter blend at the pump all the time, but I genuinely have no idea what it actually means.
Sure.
How does ending a blend requirement magically lower the price of gas?
It comes down to vapor pressure and production costs. So in the heat of summer, standard gasoline evaporates quickly, which creates smog.
Okay.
So the EPA requires refineries to produce summer blend gas. This replaces cheap, highly volatile ingredients like butane with much more expensive additives to prevent that evaporation.
Okay, I see.
It takes longer to refine, it costs more to make, and it tightens the overall supply.
Ah, so it's a bottleneck.
Exactly. By lifting those restrictions early, the EPA allows refineries to instantly switch back to winter blend, which is cheaper to produce and incorporates those abundant ingredients like butane. It immediately floods the market with more supply, driving down the price per gallon.
Right, supply and demand.
Yep. Supporters of the administration, like Lee Zeldin, pointed to headlines across major outlets framing this as decisive, immediate action by the EPA to lower prices and directly help the working class.
It's a quick fix. You pull a regulatory lever and the price at the pump drops. But gas prices are just a Band-Aid. The sources reveal a much deeper structural push happening beneath the surface, heavily rooted in this broader America First philosophy.
Absolutely.
They're an attempt to fundamentally rewire American industry, and it really starts with agriculture.
Yes, let's look at the Beef Labeling Clarity Act being pushed by Senators Marshall, Barrasso, and Hyde-Smith. This is agricultural protectionism in its purest form.
How so?
Well, Senator Hyde-Smith pointed out that American cattle producers are getting crushed by severe droughts, massive input costs, and a shrinking domestic herd. Her argument is that these ranchers cannot be expected to survive if they also have to compete with an unregulated flood of cheap foreign imported beef.
Which makes total sense from a producer standpoint. And this tied into a pretty wild statistic I found in the sources from Representative Tim Burchett. He noted that currently only 15% of the cut flowers bought in the United States are actually grown here.
Only 15%.
Yeah, 85% are imported. It highlights how utterly dependent we've become on foreign supply chains just for basic agricultural goods.
And that dependency is exactly what the Beef Labeling Clarity Act is trying to reverse. Senator Barrasso argues that ranchers just want a fair, transparent marketplace. They want clear labels so consumers can actively choose to buy beef from the USA.
Right.
The underlying philosophy here is that relying on foreign imports to cover up domestic agricultural struggles isn't just an economic issue, it is a profound national security vulnerability.
And what's really striking is that this philosophy doesn't stop at cattle or flowers. It extends directly into the most advanced sectors of our economy. The sources included a stark warning from Tim Sheehy about technology, specifically artificial intelligence. He used Germany as a massive cautionary tale.
This is a crucial connection to make. For decades, Germany operated under a geopolitical policy known as change through trade. The idea was that if Western democracies economically integrated with authoritarian regimes like China,
Like building factories there.
right, if they built factories there and shared technology, it would eventually liberalize those regimes.
But Sheehy argues that failed miserably.
Completely failed. Germany basically handed over its industrial crown jewels, their advanced manufacturing, their precision engineering, they handed it to China. And now Beijing is taking those very factories that Germany built and layering advanced artificial intelligence over them.
Wow.
Yeah, to create fully automated, hyper-efficient production lines that the West can no longer compete with.
Hold on, let me make sure I understand this. How does offshoring a physical steel factory or a car plant lose us the AI race? I thought AI was just like code and algorithms built by tech guys in Silicon Valley.
That is the big misconception, and it is the exact aha moment Sheehy is pointing to. You cannot train industrial artificial intelligence in a vacuum. To build an AI model that runs a smart factory, That model needs to learn from terabytes of real-world data generated by physical sensors on physical assembly lines.
Oh.
If the physical factory is located in Shenzhen, then China gets the data, China trains the model, and China owns the industrial AI revolution.
Wow. So we thought we were just outsourcing cheap labor to save a few bucks, but we actually outsource the very foundation needed for future innovation. You can't lead in industrial AI if you don't possess the physical industry to begin with.
That is the core argument unifying these chaotic policies. Whether it is imposing 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, protecting beef in Wyoming, or racing for AI dominance, the administration's belief is that industrial capacity equals national power. If American industry doesn't physically build it on home soil, we lose the future.
So if we step back and look at this entire stack of information from August 24, 2026, we are watching an administration radically willing to decouple from the established global order. They are weaponizing the American consumer market to punish a deeply integrated ally like Canada. They are weaponizing the U.S. dollar to choke out Iran, risking the stability of the global financial system. And they are doing this amid immense military strain, inflation, and a desperate scramble to reclaim physical industrial power.
It is a high-stakes gamble on a global scale, and it leaves us with an incredibly important question to ponder.
Looks like.
If the United States continues down this path, using our consumer market and our currency as blunt weapons against both our adversaries and our closest allies, does this aggressive strategy actually secure long-term American dominance? Or, by pushing both friends and foes to the brink, do we accidentally force the rest of the world to finally collaborate, build an alternate global system, and simply leave the United States behind?
That is a fascinating, heavy thought to leave you with, and definitely something to mull over.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this custom-tailored deep dive into the sources. We highly encourage you to keep exploring this material on your own. See you next time.